Hello everyone, and welcome to some space exploration in Factorio with me, Nubcake Jake. Would you look at this beautiful, beautiful 4x4 reactor? Oh, how I love it. They said it was impossible. They said that it couldn't be done. And yet, here we have it. Boom, cells come out, cells go in. It's great. And, you know, I sure hope that nothing bad ever happens to it. Oh my gosh, what is that on the horizon? Oh no! Oh, it's all over. The whole reactor. Meteors! Man, space exploration, fraught with danger. One of the first ones that you're going to encounter right in the early game. That's right. It's meteors. Now, in space exploration, there's a couple extra dangers that you might face. You get the usual ones that you have to experience all the time, like the biters. You get the brand new ones, like CMEs that come from space, and we also get meteors. While doing the preparation for this video, I found out that if you look in the code, biters are actually not targeted by meteors. Meteors target when they decide to strike on a surface. First, they look for characters on the surface. Then they look for cars, spider vehicles, locomotives, and cargo wagons. Then they look for electric poles, and if they don't find any of that, then they're going to strike somewhere near the middle. So you don't normally have to worry about meteors striking down all your biters for you, or accidentally striking your little biter zoos, if you happen to make those, but you may be worried about them striking your factory, especially if you're on a planet where they leave a little present. Like here, on Alba. This planet is supposed to have Vitamelange, although we weren't lucky enough to have anything spawn in the actual radius of this planet that exists, but it does have the hazard of biter meteors. What does that mean? Well, it means if a meteor impacts the ground on this planet, it's going to leave behind a little gift. Now, fortunately for us on this planet, we've put some defenses kind of scattered around, and we also have artillery to help take care of any of the miscreants that do happen to get through all of our defenses, but that did lead me to the question. We had a breakthrough on this planet, and I was wondering, just how many defenses do you need to actually stop meteors from landing on this planet? Just how many meteor defense installations do you need to protect yourself? Well, it's actually a very interesting question. If you look right here, we have the two different types of meteor defense. We have the meteor point defense on the left, and we've got the meteor defense installation on the right. Now, the biggest difference that you might notice between these two is that the meteor point defense actually has a given range of 64, so it can only protect within 64 tiles of where it's placed, which is a lot smaller than the meteor defense installation, which can protect the entire planet. Now, one of the big differences between these is that the meteor point defense also, while only protecting a limited area, it can shoot 4 meteors every time it needs to shoot. So every time that there's a meteor shower, 4 meteors could potentially be taken down by the meteor point defense. However, it only has 50% accuracy. So you probably can only count on it for getting a good 2 on average. However, it's a lot cheaper to run, takes a lot less electricity. It's only taking 2 megawatts. And additionally to that, its ammo is very cheap. 8 steel plates and 4 coal gets you 1 meteor point defense ammo. And it's much earlier in the tech tree. It's actually a very nice, good starting option to protect yourself from meteor defense, especially in the areas that you want to keep most protected, like your power supply and some of your most important assemblers. However, as you progress in the game and you move up the tech tree, you're probably going to get promoted up to the meteor defense installation. These guys have an 80% accuracy, they draw 20 megawatts, and they can only shoot down 1 meteor at a time. But again, over the whole planet, so it's a lot easier to place one bank of these somewhere on your planet, load them all up with ammo, and have the whole planet protected. Now, the ammo is a lot more expensive. As you'll see, it takes 10 electronic circuits, 10 batteries, and 10 steel plates. So the biggest difference that you may notice is that with the inclusion of batteries now, you're going to need some oil processing up, at the very least, to go and maintain a bank of these. But then that leads to another question. This guy's 80% accurate, but he only shoots 1 shot. Well, meteors can come in more than 1 meteor per shower. Just how many of these things do you need? Well, if we go and we look at the Informatron, and we look at the subject on meteor defense, we could see that, as far as how often meteors come, they hit at random intervals, but you can change the max interval between strikes in the mod setting, which we will take a look at in just 1 second. The number of meteors is random, where you get a 50% chance of 1, a 25% chance of 2, 12.5% chance of 3, 6.25% chance of 4, and so on and so forth. So it's a half a chance each time to get a higher and higher number of meteors. If we look here in mod settings, we can see that the default meteor max interval setting is set to 30 minutes. So that's the maximum interval, and the meteors will strike at some time between 1 minute and this quantity. So I'm going to say on average, you're going to get one every 15 minutes or so, and that's on every surface. Meaning, if you go to a different planet, if you go to orbit, if you go to a different orbit, each one of those is going to get its own meteor strike approximately every 15 minutes. But as you can see, that there is going to be a range between 1 minute and whatever your max interval is set to. So that leads to the question. If you can get a whole bunch of meteors, and they come every 15 minutes, just how many of these things do you need to actually be safe? Well, we ended up making a little bit of a spreadsheet to try and help us find out just how many defense installations you need. Now there's a lot of information here. The most important part about this spreadsheet is the question that we're asking, which is, how many meteor defense installations do we need to make sure that there is no meteors that actually break through our defenses? So, for a given number of meteor strikes, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, you could see that the odds of those happening is a 1 in 2, 1 in 4, 1 in 8, 1 in 16, 1 in 32, and so on, and powers of 2 all the way down. On the left, we have the number of defense installations, and you can see that there's an obvious trend where having more meteor defense installations gives you less and less chance of actually having a meteor breakthrough. But this doesn't quite paint the whole picture, because you're getting a meteor strike, on average, about 4 times an hour, right? These numbers, especially as you get towards the further end, in the very rare occurrences, they get very, very small, but getting them to actually be equal to 0% chance of a meteor ever getting through just doesn't quite happen. There's always a chance that your guns are very, very unlucky sequentially all in a row and they all fail. Or there's a chance that you get many, many more meteors than you're expecting. And there's a chance, very, very small, very unlikely, but if you play long enough or if you have enough surfaces, eventually you're going to get some of these very unlikely outcomes of high numbers of meteors and a lot of defense installations missing. So, over here we created another fun little chart, which tells us and makes some assumptions that if we're having 4 meteors attacking approximately per hour, and we go and we take the weighted odds of however many meteors come and actually end up landing, how many defense installations will buy us how many hours on average before we'll have a meteor breach through our defenses. So you can see that if you only have 0 defense installations, as expected, you're going to get a meteor breach roughly every quarter of an hour, or 15 minutes. Every time a meteor comes down, it's going to breach your defenses, because you have none. Hey, what a concept. But as you start getting more and more defense installations, say we get up to 10, well, now the chance of breach in an hour is only 2.41%. So on average, it's going to be about 41 hours before a meteor actually manages to go and breach the defenses. Now, depending on what planet you're on, if you're on Novice, where a meteor means that a meteor lands, it does some damage, something gets hurt, maybe you lose some of your more fragile buildings, a couple solar panels or something, but you wouldn't lose anything like a warehouse, or hopefully not a meteor installation, or an umbrella, or a nuclear power plant. Any of those high health items will probably survive a single meteor, so you don't have to worry about them too much. But on other planets, like on our planet Alba, you could see that we end up with the risk of any one breach potentially causing a failure on the whole planet, because they could land anywhere, even in the middle of the planet. In fact, as we looked at earlier, because meteors have a tendency to like to strike near the middle of the planet, the most likely place for the bugs to try to want to land when the meteor strikes is going to be right in the middle here, right next to all of our rocket equipment, which isn't great. So on a planet like Alba, you definitely want to have more defenses than you would expect in order to keep it bug-free, because you can't exactly control where they're coming from, and they can cause a lot of damage when they get in. But that brings us just right back to the question, how many defense installations do you need then? Well, I guess it depends on how long your playthrough is going to be. Looking online, it seems like people expect an average space exploration playthrough to take somewhere between 300 to 500 hours. Now, on my server, we're a bit at slowpokes, and you can see our total time played is currently at 468 hours, and we've just got the space science going. How many hours of defense you need is probably based on your speed of play, and about how long it takes to beat space exploration. Since I haven't done it myself, I don't know exactly how far away that is. Now, we're also playing with a couple other mods like Krastorio 2 in my playthrough, so I'm expecting it to take a little longer. And just to be a little bit conservative on the estimate, we probably want something like I don't know, probably 1,000 hours of defense without any breakthroughs, especially on a planet like Alba here. If we just consult right back to our handy dandy little chart, we can see that that means 1,000 hours is going to require something around 16 defense installations, which is quite a lot if you think about it, because you need to give ammo for all of them every time they fire. Granted, ammo used is usually going to be a meteor shot down, and you're going to have to supply them with power pretty much continuously. Now the good news is, the Meteor Defense installation, after it's fully charged, doesn't take as much power as when it's charging up. In fact, it only takes a quarter of as much power, so 20 megawatts charging up, but once it's fully charged, it only requires 5 megawatts in maintenance, which, depending on where you're at in the game, could be a lot or a little, but depending on the amount of security and safety you need on your planet, is relatively affordable. If we go and we use our number of 16 Meteor Defense installations, then that means that we're going to need a whopping 80 megawatts of power just to keep biters from landing on our planet. But if you have a big enough reactor, or you've got enough solar panels, you probably won't have to worry too much about that aspect of it. Alrighty, I'm Nubcake Jake, and this was my little video on meteors in space exploration in Factorio. If you want to catch the rest of our playthrough, you can catch us on twitch.tv/nubcake_jake, or you can just click on the link down below. If there's something else about our factory that you've seen in today's video, or in any of our other videos, or in our Twitch playthrough that you want to see me focus in depth on, let me know in the comments down below. And I hope to see you all next time. See ya. Do we want to break down how we went and got this table? Maybe. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We're nerds here. We can make a little explanation. So to figure out the chance of a breakthrough of the meteors past our defenses, we need to know two factors. Really, those factors are the meteors and the guns. For our purposes, we're going to call the number of meteors M and the number of guns G. And thinking about this problem was kind of difficult to figure out one formula for any square on its own, M and G, that I could just plug in and it just works. In order to try to solve this problem, what we did is we kind of went and we looked at, for any number of guns, M and G, you end up with two outcomes. You either hit, which you have an 80% chance to do, and then you'll end up with one less meteor and one less gun, or you're going to miss, which you have a 20% chance to do, and you're going to end up with the same number of meteors and one less gun. If you follow this thinking, you eventually get all the way up to the chain until you get to a scenario where you know what the outcome is, where you either have no meteors left, where you know that you've definitely gotten rid of any chance of a breakthrough, or you have one meteor left and no guns left, in which case you know for a fact that the meteor has broken through. So if you go and take that idea where you have an 80% chance of hitting and a 20% chance of missing, and you can follow the chain all the way up to these known quantities, you can kind of just run a weighted sum where any number M and G is actually just 80% times whatever the chance of breakthrough is in the case of one less meteor, one less gun, plus 20% times the chance of a breakthrough when you have the same number of meteors and one less gun. And if you follow that chain all the way up and you propagate it all the way up through the spreadsheet, you'll notice that on the spreadsheet side, that top row where you have no guns remaining, and that far left column where you have one meteor remaining, those are the fixed known quantities of either 100% chance of breakthrough or 0% chance of breakthrough. And then every cell in the spreadsheet can be derived from those by following that kind of formula where you figure out the weighted sum, 80% and 20% of a hit or a miss, and you can kind of figure out what the chances are of a breakthrough for any one meteor attack, which I thought was pretty neat. Hang on, am I putting this at the end of the video? Oh no. Did I already say goodbye? What if you're all gone? Oh no! Well, if you went and stuck around to the real end of the video, then thank you very much for sticking around, and hey, I hope you found this about as interesting as I did. But then again, I love a little bit of probability. But that's all I've got for now. So, see ya!